Design Counts Community Roundtable. I'm Henry Pava from the British Council in the Philippines, and I will be your host for today. I hope everyone's doing fine this Thursday. I'd like to welcome you all, a virtual welcome to all those who are here in the meeting room. Of course, a massive thanks for being part of this community roundtable discussion for Design Counts. I think we have around 70 participants, which is a good number. Um, yeah, we are glad to have representatives from different organizations, business support, industry and professional associations, incubators and accelerators, creative process outsourcing, innovation and business consulting agencies. We also have groups or members from the UX and UI community, chambers of commerce and industry, and the academe. As we start our program, let's all be reminded of the house rules. The session will be recorded for documentation purposes only. Second, please turn your settings into a speaker view found at the upper right corner of your screen to appreciate better the hosting platform. And lastly, during the Q&A, you can use the raise hand function if you would like to ask questions with your microphone or just type in your questions in a chat box. All right, so now to set our design counts community roundtable experience in motion, let's first hear from the Executive Director of the Design Center of the Philippines, Ms. Ria Rieta Matute, for her welcome remarks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Her Majesty's Ambassador to the Republic of the Philippines, Mr. Daniel Robert Prowse, DTI Undersecretary Rafaelita Aldaba of the Competitiveness and Innovation Group, our partners in this undertaking, of course, the British Council Philippines, headed by Pilar Armayo Prudential, Country Director, and of course, Lydel Rosario and her team. Steve Heino, Director at Nordy City and Project Director for the Philippine Design Economy Mapping and Formulation of the National Design Policy. Carlos Agun and Rach Carlos of Bayan Academy, our local Philippine counterpart researchers. Dr. Anna Witzer, Head of Policy at PDR International Center for Design and Research, who's also acting as the lead policy specialist and advisor of the Philippine Project. And of course, the Design Center team, Kenneth Buenas and Joy Kasim, who is the project lead for our Design Counts initiative. As of last night, we were told that there are going to be 63 companies and organizations, but as of right now, we already have 77 participants in this Zoom call this afternoon. And in the interest of time, we will just flash on screen the names of the attendees and the organizations you all represent. And if you do not mind, I will just go ahead with my message and we flash attendees' names on screen. We wish we were all doing this face-to-face, just so that we'll all get to see one another and share this heartwarming feeling of support for this ambitious design journey we are undertaking, not simply for the good of Design Center, but more importantly, good design is good business, and good design is good governance. It is our objective that our research project will allow us to make that case for design, not simply through qualitative data and storytelling, but complement it with hard quantitative data of the Philippine design economy using the design innovation ecosystem framework. I know this feels very much like policy and government talk to most of you, but bottom line, we want to make the case for the business value of design, whereby the more engaged a company's and government's use of design method is at the very early stage of its development, and the bigger the role design plays in the overall business strategy, the higher the economic return, as well as strengthen its foundation for business sustainability, agility, and resilience. From there, we also want to be able to further support the ecosystem by crafting a national design policy, the Philippines' first national design policy, whereby we can develop the country's national design resources and encourage their effective use to make companies, industries more competitive and innovative, but as well as provide design-driven solutions to long-standing problems and issues facing the country where government and traditional bureaucracies have been unable to fully address. So yes, it is ambitious, but we believe that with you joining us in this journey, we will be able to make this happen. And it starts with asking you all to take this survey. And for those business support organizations and professional associations, as well as the academic partners who are with us today, we ask you to ask your members to take this survey, to be patient and go through the survey with us. The more diverse the respondents from the various areas of the design innovation ecosystem, the more instructive our data will be in informing our national design policy. It will definitely not be smooth sailing, but we believe in the power of design as a creative tool for improving the quality and competitiveness and branding of Philippine products and services in the global market, as a strategic tool of value creation for sustainable economic development, and as an innovative tool for enhancing the quality of human life. So on behalf of the Design Center, thank you for thank you all for accepting our invitation to today's roundtable. We hope that with this roundtable, we will be able to provide you the necessary information so that you can join us not only in our design counts, design mapping, and policy development initiative, but we hope we can convince you all to take this transformational journey with us. So thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Ria. Looks like we are off to a good start. All right, just to briefly introduce, Design Counts PH is the pioneering design economy mapping of the Philippines. So it's a partnership between the Design Center of the Philippines and British Council. This initiative is actually a study to analyze the economic contribution and value chain of the design industry by mapping the country's design innovation ecosystem. And we launched a design counts last year while our national survey was made available to the public last month. But this is the only first step in making a history. The community roundtable discussion is just one of the ways in helping us build the future of Philippine design nation and in the formulation of the very first national design policy. We will discuss this more later during the presentations and the Q&A. Now, for our opening message, allow me to introduce Her Majesty's Ambassador, Daniel Robert Cruz of the British Embassy, Manila. Ambassador Cruz was appointed as the British Ambassador to the Philippines in August 2017. Before that, he worked in the Europe Directorate of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in London, heading the government that dealt with internal European Union or EU issues, including economic reform and the EU's institutions. He was also responsible for strategic communications in the EU, including the Lisbon Treaty. Welcome to the virtual stage, Her Majesty's Ambassador, Daniel Robert Cruz.
Thank you very much indeed, Henry, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have the opportunity to say a few words at the start of what I know is going to be a fascinating and exciting event. I will dive straight into my introductory remarks if I may, because I don't want to delay you from getting into the substance of your discussions. It's great to see the British Council working so actively across Southeast Asia to support the development of the strategic and policy agendas of local creative economies, and that's absolutely what we're seeing here in the Philippines. British Council programs and research projects enable the UK to share its experience with the wider world. And I've seen the Council working here and in many other countries with the emerging creative leaders, communities and policymakers to develop relevant, diverse and future-facing creative economies. And through that, also building long-term links, strong links with the UK. Through the Council's programme, we are supporting very actively the aspiration of the Philippine government to grow its own creative economy. But it's absolutely critical to have solid data and evidence to underpin policy making and development in this, as in so many other areas. And it's in this exchange of expertise and best practices from different parts of the world that we can craft the most relevant programs and policies that support a country's design ecosystem and do that in the best way possible. And that's where Design Counts comes in and why it's such an important and such an exciting project. Just consider a little bit the value of the creative industries and design sector in the UK. Research studies have helped spur the growth of the creative industry sector so that in 2018, it contributed £111 billion to the British economy. That's a vast contribution. Design also contributes to society by spurring innovation, by showcasing creativity and creating value through intellectual property, employment and revenue. Meanwhile, the design economy has generated £85.2 billion to the UK in 2016, and it's employed around 1.69 million people. And those are people working in design roles. That's equivalent to employment in the hospitality sector in the UK. And it's clear that as our economies start to grow again, as the coronavirus pandemic starts to recede, the design economy will continue to contribute to our broader economic growth, including in the United Kingdom. And the Design Council's own research has shown that design delivers skills that people need in the 21st century. Skills that are used across the economy in many different jobs and sectors, but which are central to innovation, which are essential for creative thinking, and bound up, part and parcel of the skills necessary in problem solving to be able to address the challenges that the world faces today. The Memorandum of Understanding with the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines aims to strengthen intellectual property creation and enforcement in the Philippines and across ASEAN, as well as to share best practices that will enable businesses, especially the MSMEs, in both the consumer and creative sectors, to capitalize their IP and use that to gain access to financing and advance in the competition within their industries. So again, a critically important aspect of this protection of intellectual property. So I conclude with a call to action then, and encourage everyone involved today to complete the Design Count survey, to answer the questions contained therein. That will help us to map, to magnify, and to move the Philippine design economy forward. And with that, I wish you a very rewarding and enjoyable discussion this afternoon. Thank you very much for your attention. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Cruz. It is really through meaningful partnerships and collaborations we can develop the appropriate programs that can better support a country's design ecosystem in the best way possible. Now, for our last opening message, Dr. Rafaelita or Fita M. Aldaba is Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation of the Philippine Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, and serves as a member of the Board of Governors of the Philippine Board of Investments, or BOI. She is responsible for DTI's initiatives on innovation and entrepreneurship, startup ecosystem development, national competitiveness, accreditation of conformity assessment bodies, trade and industrial policy research, and creative industries development. Welcome to the virtual stage, Fita.
Thank you. Her Majesty's Ambassador to the Philippines, Mr. Daniel Robert Cruz, Ms. Pilar Aramayo Prudencio, Country Director of the British Council in the Philippines, Mr. Stephen Hignell, Director of Nordicity and Project Director of the Philippine Design Economy Mapping and Formulation of the National Design Policy, Dr. Anna Witcher, Head of Policy at PDR International Center for Design and Research UK, Executive Director Ms. Rhea Matute of the Design Center of the Philippines. And of course, to all of you who are joining us today, good afternoon. It is an honor and pleasure to be part of this impressive gathering of the country's leaders in the space of creativity, design, and innovation, the country's creative disruptors. Thank you for accepting the invitation to this roundtable and to help provide data to the Design Center. As we know, data is important to better understand the Philippine design innovation ecosystem. In a study conducted for the UK's Treasury Department, Sir George Cox emphasized the relationship between creativity, design, and innovation. With creativity being the generator of new ideas and solutions, innovation is the successful exploitation of these new ideas and the process that carries them to new products, services, and new ways of running an activity. Design is what links creativity and innovation. It shapes ideas to become practical and attractive propositions for users or customers. Design then may be defined as creativity deployed towards a specific end. In 2015, the Design Management Institute, which is based in Boston, and Motive Strategies showed that over the last 10 years, design-led companies have maintained significant stock market advantage, outperforming the S&P by an extraordinary 211%. In another report, the Design Delivers 2018 by the Danish Design Council revealed that 50% of Danish companies credited design's growing influence on their bottom line over the last 5 years, and 64% of the companies expected design to become a more important competitive parameter over the next 5 years. In the UK, of course, Ambassador also mentioned this, many companies work systematically with design as a key component in their business development and strategy. 2/3 or 65% of UK businesses are convinced that design is integral to future economic performance, and 8 out of 10 agree that there is a link between design and profitability. While these are the cases in countries capitalizing on design, in the Philippines, many companies still think of design as a matter of aesthetics. Design is not considered in a systematic manner, which leaves considerable room for a more strategic approach in fostering design among Filipino enterprises. And as the earlier studies cited have shown, design is not only exclusive to the design sector. Non-design sectors like financial services, business and management consulting, IT services, and health services also benefit from a design perspective. And this is where design counts can make a difference. In partnership with the British Council, the Design Center of the Philippines is pioneering a design economy mapping study which seeks to gather relevant data and information about the Philippine design economy, as well as to understand the relationship of design within the design industries, as well as the larger design economy and the design innovation ecosystem in the Philippines. As the other countries have shown, there is a need to focus not only on designers in design sectors, but also in other sectors of the economy, which are starting to apply design and design thinking principles into their business to move it forward. Understanding the state of design in the Philippine economy is a crucial step for us to develop a plan through which the Philippines and its enterprises can move and benchmark with the UK, Denmark, US, and Singapore. But more importantly, crafting our own design narrative towards enhancing the country's competitiveness through innovation would be vital. Design counts can be the start of this journey and pave the way for the country's first ever national design policy. There is much that can and must be done, but we cannot do this alone. We need you. We need your network to support design counts. By coming together and sharing with us your own stories and design journey, we will be able to better understand the state of design in the country, and from there, unleash the power of design so that we can all look forward to a more sustainable and prosperous future in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Aldaba. We're so happy that you could join us today, and thank you for showing your support to our pioneering mapping initiative. All right, I think we're just getting warmed up. Now that we have heard the opening messages from our key leaders, Let's now move on to the next part of our discussion, which is the presentation. Our first speaker is Steve Hignell, Director of Nordicity, an international creative sector consultancy specializing in research, strategy, policy, economics, and sustainable development. Nordicity has undertaken a wide variety of cultural heritage, social and creative enterprise, and sustainable development projects internationally, including for the design sector and in people-led approaches. Welcome to the virtual stage, Steve.
Great, thank you, Henry, and thank you everybody for this. So we're really pleased to be here. I think there are a lot of familiar faces and a lot of familiar names on the group. So hello to everybody that we've spoken with before, and a warm welcome to everybody that we look forward to hopefully speaking with over the next while. So I will just talk through the project, the Design Counts project, and from the consultants side. So a little bit about the project. We'll first start with the project team. So as mentioned, the project is led by a trio, a team of 3 organizations. So Nordicity is a global cultural and creative industries consultancy. We have over 40 years experience, and we work across the cultural, creative, and heritage sectors, including design, but very much across the film and television, music, video games, theater, galleries, museums, and libraries and hubs, and so forth. We also work extensively in social enterprise and social impact, sector strategies, policies, and roadmaps, and economic impact and social impact. Our partners, Bayan Academy and Dr. Anna Witcher, who are on the call. Bayan Academy is a national Philippines organization leading in social entrepreneurship and human resource development. They specialize in cross-sectoral mapping and value chain analysis. They are impact specialists, policy specialists, and so much more. Dr. Anna Witcher is an international design sector specialist, a true leader in the field, recognized globally and internationally for leading and advancing taxonomies and methodologies in this area. Now, about the project. The project brief is really focusing on understanding what does the Philippine design economy comprise of. Then we look at what is the total value and contribution of the design economy to the wider economy. We also look at what are the needs of the design economy players, as well as how does the industry compare to other major local industries. And this is all in the context of COVID, all in the context of the global economy, and is very much forward-looking in terms of innovation. The project has a number of outcomes, expected outcomes, where this will be helpful to many of you, if not all of you, in that the project will help determine the design, determine the impact that design has in the Philippines. It will help to measure the contribution of GDP in terms of GDP, jobs, income, exports, and revenues, tax revenues. And it will help provide a key policy and advocacy resource for everybody in the design ecosystem. It will provide a baseline and a plan to continue monitoring progress of the sector and of the interventions in the sector. And it will help to support the COVID-19 recovery process. It will help to identify centers and clusters of activity to inform further strategic interventions. And it will really contribute, very importantly, to the future of design and discussions around national design policy. So all this to say that this research is one piece. It's one very big and one very important piece, in a very large and long-term and ongoing plan. Now, our methodology and our approach involves a number of different data collection methods and a number of different methodologies and tools and consultation means. We are working through a significant amount of desk research, literature review, document review. We are conducting this national design count survey. We have held a considerable number of interviews. We're undertaking a large number of case studies, and then a significant amount of consultations in the form of workshops, focus group discussions, meetings, and the like. That would be on the left-hand side. On the top of this in the green, we can see that the various stakeholder groups at the design level are the designers and artists, design enterprises, and design workers. And when I say design workers, those are people working in the form of design that might be outside of the design sector. We're also looking at an institutional level. So we're very interested in the industry associations, the institutions, the educational institutions, and various hubs such as creative hubs and the like. We're also focusing on the public level. So that is looking at and engaging with the various government departments, local authorities, and other public sector stakeholders. Now, what we have here in the large oval, the magenta or pink oval, is the survey, and that's largely for the discussion today, where we'd really like to raise your attention and really say that this survey, the Design Counts National Survey, is intended for all of these stakeholders, is for all of you, whether you're in design, whether you're at an institution, or whether you are working on a public level. And in this case, we're asking that the survey not only be completed, but also to ensure that your voice is heard, but also it is a chance to share the survey with your networks, to promote the survey and so forth. Now, as I mentioned, we're looking at the design sector, but we're looking much greater than the design sector as well. We're looking at design within other sectors. So we're doing what's called dynamic mapping, and we're deploying what's called design intensity. And that is to say that we're looking at the design industries, which you can see at the top of this matrix. And then on the left-hand side of the matrix, you can see that it's for the occupations in other sectors that we're looking at various types of design activities within. Now, we're going to give you a very quick sneak peek at some of the Design Counts, the National Survey profile findings. The visuals are not the easiest to see, so I would just maybe point out that try not to look too much at the visuals, and actually I'll just talk through them and we'll move along with them quite quickly. There is a pixelation thing that makes it possibly a little bit difficult to read, but we'll just say that the types of respondents so far have largely been individual designers. So you can see up at the top, mostly individual designers have been completing the survey, but we have had a significant number of design companies, which is great news. And we've also had a large number of design workers. Again, very good news. And there's no surprises that there are more individual designers, so there'll be a much larger response rate from designers. And then lower down, we can see that government sector support organizations and educational institutions and associations have all had good response rates so far, but much less. And that's, of course, there are far fewer of those. All to say, this is looking good. We'd like to continue with this momentum. And Now we'll start to look at the location. So where are the respondents located? Now, almost all of the respondents are located in the Philippines. I'll just say only 18 were outside of the Philippines, but they were still eligible for the survey, to do the survey, because they have considerable design work and activity in the Philippines still. So just an example that this is for design in the Philippines, but it is also welcome to those outside the Philippines that still have an interest or still have some form of activity in the sector. Now, a majority have indicated that they are in either Metro Manila or the national capital region. And then next we would have, on a provincial level, significant responses from pretty much all of the, well, as you can see, the provinces listed here. But when we go down to a local level, we can see that the majority have indicated different cities. So the green line at the bottom indicates that there's a significant amount of responses from across the country in various cities, which again is very good news. There are too many cities to list here, but just to show that there's some good representation. And of course, again, the National Capital Region has a higher rate. So we would still like to increase the responses across the country and outside the National Capital Region. In terms of sectors of respondents, we have had a large number of graphic design respondents, followed by product design. Again, no surprises. Next, we see interior design, and then architecture, followed by service design. And then at the lower end, where we've had the lowest amount of responses, would be in UI, eco-design, urban design as well. So we'd really like to see those sectors increase the responses a little bit more, if we could get more engagement from that part of the design world. Now, in terms of occupations, as mentioned, we're looking at occupations in and across design, and we've had a high level of graphic and multimedia designers responding, very, very high numbers there. Next, we've had a relatively high number of architects, planners, and those working in urban design, followed by interior design and decorators. And then there are various other types of designers that, again, are too many to list out in a chart, but we have some good representation. We are looking for a little bit more, you know, from, say, furniture making and photography and film and the standard cultural and creative sectors as well. Now, we have looked a little bit at how people working in design are investing, where they're looking, where they're spending their time, and largely so far, respondents are really showing that they're heavily invested in design processes, and that's followed by social media and then materials. Of course, investment in content and customer experience follow next. And then we can see that analytics and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence are the lowest on the list. Okay. The top disruptors of design identified by respondents, new technologies were the highest, followed by social media and evolution in design thinking, the top disruptors in the sector. Ways of integrating design thinking, creative ways of thinking was the top in terms of design thinking, and that was followed by product development and marketing. Now, how is design used by respondents? So far, design has largely been used as strategy. So it's designed as a central determining element in the business or in the organization. And this is followed by design as process. But here we can see that virtually all respondents have used design in some manner, and we will have to do some probing as to the small number that have not used design in their operations. Now, there's no surprise that finance and funding so far is identified as one of the biggest, or as the biggest challenge by the sector, and that's followed by support mechanisms, suitable support mechanisms, and then that follows by human capital, skills, and the workforce, which were deemed as the lowest challenge. Okay, now the findings so far, these are obviously subject to change. We're really hoping to change or to increase the response rate. We've had a very good response rate so far, but we're really hoping to amplify the voice of the sector. And so we now come to the next steps of the National Design Count survey. And just to point to the survey as something that's really for everybody. It's for everybody and anybody that's involved in any form of design. It's for industry leaders and industry members such as yourselves, who are uniquely placed to promote the survey and encourage your friends and colleagues and stakeholders to contribute. The more survey responses, the louder and stronger your collective voice will be. The more government and other influencers and decision makers will hear your voice and take this forward, this evidence basis forward. And so we do have a very great survey landing page that the Design Center has very carefully and well put together. The survey can be accessed at this link here, designcenter.ph/design-counts. And we can be sharing this link as well afterwards. Also to say that throughout this data collection process, the survey data is protected. So all information is protected. We respect your privacy. All responses will be totally confidential, and they will remain anonymous. So only the researchers will have access to this information, and we'll be removing any identifiers from that information. And any information will only be reported in an aggregate form. And we will never share anything beyond the research team. And once the research project is completed, all information will be deleted securely. So the survey closes on Wednesday, the 30th of June, and that's at midnight. And at this stage, we are looking for more responses from anybody and everybody involved in design. In particular, we're looking for more responses from designers from all sectors, not just the design sector. We're really interested in getting more responses from design companies. We're interested in responses from people from across the country, and particularly outside the National Capital Region. We're interested in people responding. We have a great response rate of young people. We're really interested in increasing responses from those over the age of 40 or those under the age of 24. I should just mention that the sort of under 24 could still be increased. And great news on the gender front, as there's currently a gender parity amongst respondents. It's totally even. And then a very small number have identified as non-binary or other, or preferred not to say. And then just in the profile, 5% of respondents have reported having a disability, and 5% have preferred not to say. So all to say that the profile of respondents from a statistical perspective is looking very positive, and we are very hopeful that with your input, and perhaps that of your friends and colleagues and partners, that this can be further strengthened and your voice can be further amplified. Now, I know many of you have already completed the survey, so just to say thank you to you for that, and many have shared the survey as well. So this might not look terribly new, but for those who have not yet started the survey, this is just the landing page. This is the first page of the survey, and it just shows what the survey is like, the look and feel. It's very simple and light. It's a long survey, so you will need perhaps up to 20 minutes to complete it, depending on the complexity of your answers, your involvement in the design sector. But here we can see right away, we just ask your name and organization, and then what part of the design sector or design as a field do you work in? And then the survey will be tailored to your response based on your answers in that first page. The rest of the survey questions will be tailored for you. The survey link, once again, which we'll be sharing. And so I will end it there and say thank you. My contact information is here, and I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. Anna Witcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for that presentation. It really gives us a clearer picture of the Design Counts initiative and how this study can, further push the Philippine design forward. Right. We'll catch up with you later, Steve, for our open forum, as you have one more speaker, as you've mentioned, and for our audience, keep those questions coming. I see that we have interesting discussions about UX, UI, and product design. So please continue or send your questions in the chat box, and we'll address them later during the open forum. All right. Our next speaker is Dr. Anna Witcher. She is Associate Director of Research and Head of Design Policy at PDR, a design consultancy and research center part of Cardiff Metropolitan University. For more than a decade, Anna has been supporting design centers and governments to map their design ecosystems to inform design policy. She has led European projects focused on integrating design into business support programs and innovation policy worth more than 10 million euros. I'll be turning the spotlight over to Anna in a bit, but before I leave again, please comment your questions in our chat box so we can pull them up later for discussion in our open forum. Dr. Anna, the stage is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Henry. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm really delighted to be part of this project. So a big thank you to Steve and Ria, as well as our earlier presenters. It's really exciting to have that level of context and insight on the contribution of the creative industries and design to competitiveness. So today, I would like to give you an overview of sort of my interpretation of design, and also to give you a little bit of an indication of how design can help companies with a couple of mini case studies, how organizations can enhance the use of design, and then give you a little snapshot into what's happening around the world in terms of design policies. And I'm really, really excited about the collaboration between the Design Centre and the British Council to be able to create a national design policy for the Philippines. To me, this is honestly a really exciting development. And I think that by capitalising on what design can offer in a policy context, there's a real opportunity to enhance the supply of quality design expertise, as well as demand for design in the Philippines. So the key thing that I wanted to say when thinking about design is that design is probably a lot broader than what you're already thinking. So many of you might be very familiar with design in terms of graphics and web development, probably quite familiar with design in the context of products and fashion and textiles. But perhaps you might be less familiar with that broader interpretation of design, designed for complex problem solving in the context of private sector, as well as public sector services. But also, even broader than that, the use of design at a strategic level, understanding systems design, and also its contribution to circular economy, and also how design can transform the public sector and be used to co-create policy with citizens. So I think the key message from me in that sense is to think about design in these very broad terms as a user-centered approach to problem solving. So I'd like to give you a couple of practical examples of how design can help companies. And this is based on some work that we did with Scottish Enterprise, which is an innovation agency in Scotland as part of their By Design grant. This is something that I've spoken to the Design Centre about, and I think it's something that might have a real potential for the Philippines. So with a very small grant, so in this case, it was up to £5,000, which was match funded at 50%. And what was really great about that is that Scottish Enterprise gave this voucher to more than 600 companies in Scotland. At the time, I was a little bit concerned because obviously with the small amount of funding, I thought it might limit design to some of the lower hanging fruits rather than be more strategic. But what was really exciting about this grant is that it was for companies that had never used design before. And so it really opened the door for them to collaborate with a designer. And after a small investment, 85% of the companies continued to work with the design agency and went on to invest a further £25,000 on average in design. So this is all about de-risking design. And I'd like to share with you a couple of case studies of different kinds of companies. So this is about an online will service. So Bill, who'd worked in the financial and legal services for many years, identified an opportunity to bring an online will system into play for his clients. He had never considered design, and he used design to understand the market requirements, conduct some user research to understand what the requirements would be for his clients to be able to use such an app, and also use this By Design grant to develop an early stage concept and prototype. What was really exciting was that by really having this user-centered focus and really kind of engaging with those different user groups, he was able to bring something very innovative, intuitive, and user-friendly to the market. And within 2 years, this new service generated £210,000 in new sales. Another example is this e-bar initiative. And Sam, who had a very frustrating experience at a rugby match when it took him a really long time to buy a round of drinks. And so he actually ended up missing the first half of the game. And so he identified an opportunity for a self-service beer dispensing kiosk. And this is something that, again, he used the By Design grant for some early stage, low fidelity prototypes to test the ways in which the beer could be poured from this particular machine. He was able to test this prototype with different users. And through iterative prototyping, he's now on his 4th working prototype and has successfully trialed this self-service beer initiative at a number of high-profile events. And the anticipated future sales is £750,000 for this particular product, which is really exciting. I'd also like to share with you an example from a company in Scotland which created high-end fragrances. So Imogen worked in the whiskey industry for many years and identified that many of the creation processes between whiskey and perfume were the same. Who knew? And this was a real opportunity for her to start her own business and create a high-end fragrance brand. Again, through early stage concept development with the By Design grant, she was able to create something that was desirable, viable, and feasible through iterative testing with her clients. And thus was able to bring, as I said, this high-end fragrance brand to the market, which now is sold in some high-end shops in the UK, such as Harvey Nichols. And within the first 3 years, she generated almost £500,000 in sales from this design-led innovation. I'd also like to share an example about an outdoor cycling apparel company, also, of course, based in Scotland, and a couple who were undertaking some very exciting travel opportunities. A charity expedition to the North Pole identified a gap in the market for some high-functioning jacket wear, essentially, a top, which would be something that could be exposed to sort of extreme temperatures. And again, through using the grant, by conducting market research and concept development co-created with users, he was able to create this very successful brand, which has been tested with a number of gyms and was actually then brought to the market through a combination of crowdfunding and private investment, which in its first year generated £350,000 in new sales. Now, as I said, the key difference here is that these entrepreneurs probably wouldn't have used design to bring their product to market without the opportunity of using this grant. And the difference here was, as I said, creating something that really did respond to user needs. I'd also like to share an example of an entrepreneur who is working in East Africa, who is looking to create some sustainable insulation to work with local housing providers. And by identifying this particular fibre, which is called sisal, he was able to create a consortium of small-scale local farmers to bring this really exciting and sustainable insulation product to the market. Again, he used the grant for some early stage concept development and prototyping, as well as to create a brand and a website for the new product. What was really exciting is that, again, this particular grant, which was very small, led on to a second collaboration with Scottish Enterprise for a much larger grant. And subsequently, this company has worked with Scottish Enterprise on a number of occasions, putting design as a centrepiece of their business strategy. And within the first 2 years of operation, had generated, again, more than £500,000 in revenue. So these are really exciting examples, but how can we think about design in the bigger picture? How can we enhance the use of design in the private and public sectors? So there are many things that can be done. So looking at promotion and awareness, I'm sure we can all agree that very often, you know, there's a huge competition from small companies on their time. So creating a really strong business case for what the value of design is to innovation, competitiveness, and sustainability is really important. And promoting these case studies and enhancing networking opportunities between businesses and designers is really crucial. And I think governments and design centres have a really big role to play in this promotion and awareness arena. I'd like to highlight the example of Helsinki World Design Capital and the Year of Irish Design, which were government and design centre initiatives to promote design to companies and the general public. Both of these initiatives benefited from €5 million of funding from government, as well as an additional €5 million from private sector sponsors, which really created a huge amount of groundswell and interest by the general public. Of course, there's also funding and finance opportunities. There's a real need to enhance design literacy. So perhaps to get children in schools involved in design challenges, but also to make sure there are continuous professional development opportunities for the design sector itself. And also to not only focus on the private sector, but also on the public sector and government. There are some really exciting things happening in the design spaces in government. It was really great to have Daniel from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office on the call earlier, because I've actually recently done some work with the Foreign Office to create a design lab, which is all about introducing design and innovation processes to the way that digital public services and policies are made in the Foreign Office. And this is a really exciting development. There are more than 200 of these labs around the world. And again, I think it would be great to introduce perhaps some more public sector design initiatives in the Philippines, because this is all about leading by example. By having really strong public sector opportunities, you raise the bar for the private sector as well. So I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview very briefly to conclude around design policies across the world. So what's intriguing is, as we've already mentioned a number of times, a really useful way of thinking about a design policy is to look at design as an ecosystem, to think about these various components which all contribute to a kind of flourishing design landscape in a country. And this is exactly what the research team are trying to look at. We're trying to look at this ecosystem from both a quantitative and a qualitative perspective to identify gaps and links which could be enhanced so we can create some targeted policy action for the Philippines. This is already happening around the world. Just in Europe alone, there are more than 10 design policies that have been developed over the course of the last decade. These design policies have a number of different actions, ranging from a small number of actions, for example, in Ireland, to a large number of actions, for example, in Latvia. They focus on different stakeholder groups, and they focus on different types of mechanisms, such as the ones that I outlined earlier. So I'm going to give you a very kind of rapid overview, maybe one example from each sector. So matchmaking opportunities, implementing mentoring programs between designers and businesses is a very prominent example. Integrating design into exhibitions and trade missions, international trade missions, is also a really strong example. Making sure that there is strong childhood design literacy from an early age, but also, for example, providing funding for doctoral research in design. And then looking to, for example, ensure that there are more females in design roles. In the UK, for example, it's a very male-dominated sector. And then thinking, as I said, about how we can integrate design not only into innovation policy and sustainability policy, but perhaps to consider design as a method for more inclusive policymaking across different policy domains. So I'd like to give an example from Ireland. There's some really exciting things happening here. I think they probably had one of the most ambitious design policies that I've ever seen, certainly in Europe. They had, for example, targets to create within 1 year to create 1,800 new jobs in design and 200 new design-led startups, as well as to take 300 companies on international design missions. They mapped their design sector, looked at how companies understand design, and looked at the contribution of design sectors to the Irish economy. What was really exciting is that they absolutely smashed their targets for the year. This was in conjunction, as I said, with the Year of Irish Design, which was a very prominent initiative. And they actually created 4,000 new jobs in design, which is quite astonishing. There were 370 new design businesses registered, and they took over 400 companies on international trade missions to Asia, but also to America. And as a result of these international trade missions and all these other events that were going on, they generated more than 24 million euros in design-related exports. So this demonstrates how, if government puts a focus on design, you can really mobilize the sector and really generate a competitive advantage. And finally, I'd just like to highlight Singapore as an example of good practice. In 2020, they created a 5-year master plan to really put design at the center of development. They want to, as you can see from the bottom, fuse design into the national skill set, expand the role of design in government and businesses, strengthen the competitiveness of design firms, bring design into local communities, and develop a really strong Singapore design brand. This was an extremely effective initiative, which was run both by the government, but also by Design Singapore Council. I won't go into some of the details, but this presentation is available afterwards for you to have a look at. I just highlight perhaps some of the outputs that came from this. They created a guide to government procurement of design. As I said, it's really important for government to lead by example and be a kind of a good design customer. They also created a directory of designers. And as we know, design agencies tend to be quite small. So they also created a set of shared services for design firms. So for example, a design firm could access accountancy or marketing expertise as part of a shared service. So they weren't necessarily doing that themselves. It was something that was part of a shared service system, which I think was quite a novel idea. So of course, thinking about design can be hard, but not thinking about design can be disastrous. I think that's a nice quote that's highlighted in the policy. So I want to say thank you ever so much for having me here. I really enjoy these kind of discussions. And please, if you have any insight you would like to share on what you think could be in the design policy, please do share it with us and the research team. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Dr. Anna. The case studies that you've presented are really interesting. Something that the Philippines can look at in terms of, improving and innovating products and services through design. And it really shows that design really goes beyond aesthetics, and it really has the ability to, drive innovation and contribute to success. All right. So with that, I request you to please remain on screen as I invite Steve and Executive Director Ria. I also would like to call the project lead of this Design Counts initiative, Kenneth Bunas, to the virtual stage for a Q&A. Okay, so I think we're all here. I'm so happy to be with you, sharing the virtual stage with our participants from different cities nationwide and maybe worldwide. Again, thank you for your insights and for sharing valuable information about the role of design. We've been compiling the questions commented by our participants since the start of the session, and we have interesting questions. And again, just a reminder to all of the people who are with us today, we are prioritizing those who will raise their hands to the raise hand function and ask their questions by turning on the camera. But if you're not comfortable, you may just type in your questions in the chat box or comment box. All right, so to start off our open forum, we have a question from Bit Santos of Kickstart. So I know that Dr. Anna mentioned about this during her presentation, but maybe we can, discuss further what design is, because Bit said that it's good that we define design as a basis for our conversation, because fundamentally design is simply systematically creating a solution to a problem. If we take it, or we take this generally, everyone is designers, or perhaps if we have like a basic definition of design that we're using for the research, then it will be a good basis, in discussing the Design Counts mapping initiative. Sorry, that's the question is for Dr. Anna. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Repeat the question again.
Bit Santos of Kickstart is asking, what is the definition of design that we're using for this conversation? Yep.
For this conversation,
yeah.
I suggest that we use a really broad definition of design, one that's kind of all-encompassing. So I think a definition that I like to use, and I think this is something that we've been exploring as part of the research, is design as a user-centered approach to problem solving. Of course, the question is much bigger than that, because we also need to decide what sort of segments of design come under that definition. And that's something that we are iteratively developing as part of the research, coming up with our operational definition of design. So we had a workshop specifically focused on definitions. So this is a kind of a key thing that we want to determine. And as part of our official definition of the research, we really want to make sure the definition that we adopt has a local and a Filipino flavor.
All right, thank you. I hope that's clear a bit. So the mapping initiative is not just about finding out the role of design, but it's also one way of scoping what really design is in the Filipino context. So yeah. All right. Are there anyone who'd like to raise their questions and with their cameras on? If not, we'll just ask a question from one of the comments that we have received a while ago. So we have a question from Brian Bantugan. The question is, schools are sites of instructional and research design. Do they count? So maybe that's for, I don't know, maybe Ria or Steve.
I can take that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a very good question. I would say that leading back to the loose definition, the sort of working and wide definition of design that we're adopting, I would say that if the school is either focused on design or works in design or uses design or a user-centered approach to problem solving, then it would be appropriate for the school to be included. And then the questions would be relevant. Anybody can answer the survey, and we would welcome responses from anybody, but it won't necessarily, the questions won't necessarily be suitable for just any school. But if it was a school that approaches their problem solving in a user-centered way, or if they follow a design approach, or if they operate in the field of design, then it would be very appropriate.
Or if they had I guess, a smaller department or a school within the school that is on the design or innovation space, then they can, the person to take the survey can come from that school or department or space in the university or in the educational institution.
Right. That's why it's really important to the participation of our representatives from our academe, because I think it was mentioned in the chat box that it's really important to start at a very young age. I mean, exposing the children about design. So I think as Steve and Liam mentioned, the school can definitely be counted in terms of this mapping study and survey. All right, so I think we have two people who raised their hands. First, I'll call a representative from the Multimedia Arts Association of the Philippines, Vanessa Puente. So, hi, Vanessa.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
morning. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah.
So
feel,
just like, all right.
Yeah, feel free to ask your question now, and please address it to any of our speakers.
All right. Okay. So I sent the survey earlier, to 5 of my, team members, and one of my members asked, can they answer it twice? Like, I'm an educator and I'm a business owner, or I'm an educator and an organization head. So how's that? Can we do that, or will that,
Very, very good question.
Right.
Thanks, Vanessa. So the answer is, ideally they would answer it once, because the survey is designed so that if you're a designer, if you're an employee and you own your own business, you can select the options on the first page as all that apply. However, if it's a totally separate organization, then yes, you would submit the survey twice, and we would welcome that.
All right.
If that makes sense. So
yes. Okay, thank you.
So if you're responding on behalf of 2 organizations, then yes. But if you're a staff member, you're an employee, and you're responding on your own personal views, but also on the organization, on the company, then you would only do it once. But if you are a staff member and you have your own design practice, then you would do it twice.
All right. Good.
If that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So,
thank you.
A clearer answer is probably just do it twice. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And one more thing, good that we have those 5% respondents, because we have deaf practitioners, photographers, and practicing media. So that's good to include that also. Just thank you for this initiative.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing it with your colleagues.
Thanks, Vanessa. All right, so we have another question. Sorry, Jackie, I'll go back to you. I just would like to raise this question from Haraya. I think this question is for Sriya. From what you've seen, what is the best way to get the government machinery running on design initiatives? Which actors, sectors do you think would be most effective in getting on the government's agenda?
Well, I think the mapping would really help. It puts the data into the discussion. I'm from government, but still sometimes it's very difficult to explain if you don't have proof. Government likes to have proof when you talk to them, and so therefore you need data, and more extensive data, the more impressed or the more willing government is to sit down with you and really develop that plan, or like develop the initiatives. So that's why we feel that this mapping is very important. And then the national design policy, we really wanted to make sure that when we do craft the national design policy, it was really going to be data driven, in order to be able to measure as well, the impact of our initiatives 3 years from now, 5 years from now. This national design policy is not forever, like really it's planned to every 5 years that we are going to develop a new plan to make sure that it's evolutionary, as well as given as industries change as well, make sure that it is very responsive to the sector and the needs, its needs as well as the needs of the country. So I know some of you are saying, I know Jackie's gonna come next, but I know Jackie mentioned about some of their members that are do not have internet access currently, and therefore it's a shame not to have them part of the survey. Unfortunately, because of the conditions, we really wanted to also put boots on the ground to be able to do this survey. But again, I mean, this is not going to be a one-time, it's not going to be a one-shot deal. In aid of every 5 years, the renewal of the policy, or the writing of the next stage of the policy, we will be regularly doing the mapping. It's not going to be every year, but maybe it's every 3 years, or just as we start to craft the next design policy, then we will do the mapping again.
Okay.
Just to add on that, Henry.
Sure.
Yeah. Cliche as it may seem, but it's really true that it's really difficult to invest, improve, and really manage something if you cannot measure it. So if design is something that we really treasure and we want it to be recognized, it's very important to measure it and demonstrate its impact. So basically, navigating both policy and the business sector, quantitative data has always been one of the most compelling evidence in terms of gathering support to the government. But some of them has also background in arts and design, so it's also important to at least humanize this number. So we need to make sense of these numbers and influence the government and other policymakers that design really is a force for good. I mean, it's not just about storytelling, but showing evidence that it drives competitiveness, it really boosts economic growth, and it would really help the Philippines to be positioned in a global as a global leader rather for design and innovation. So at the end of the day, as you can see, Steve mentioned earlier about our methodology. So the key that we are really aiming right now is to be able to triangulate this data and stories and be able to generate balance and as well as compelling insights that will influence decisions and policy change.
Well, very well said, Ken. Just a follow-up question to what you've said. We've been saying about gathering evidence-based insights through the survey, but after this survey, what's next for this initiative, and when do we plan to share the results with our stakeholders? Just for their reference.
Well, the survey is currently ongoing, but we're also working by an academy for the development of case studies. And as of now, we have already 8 out of 9 cities that is completed in terms of the scoping workshops. And we're still missing one more, participation from City of Manila. So I would like to take this opportunity that if someone from this room knows someone who's working at City of Manila, please give us, or introduce us or connect us with them. We really need their participation so that we can be able to move forward with the case studies. And right after the development of case studies and upon wrapping up our survey on the 30th of June, the survey results will be released or first shared to the public on September in the International Design Conference. But after that, we'll be still hosting some national design policy workshops to be conducted by Dr. Anna Witcher. So for those who are very interested in terms of being part of the conversation, because I saw in the chat box that a lot of you have a lot of concerns. this is the right avenue and opportunity for us to gather all of you and ensure that the national design policy that we will be creating, especially if it will be the very first one, would be inclusive and well-grounded.
All right, thanks, Ken. Okay, I think we have Jackie of the Philippine Fashion Coalition. Jackie, please ask your question now.
Ria already answered my question. My question was more geared towards making sure that all design communities, especially the ones that live in the mountains all over the Philippines, are counted, because they are a very integral part of our ecosystem and our culture. So the question was answered that they will be counted eventually. So I would just like to say thank you for making the survey. Finally, we can present something to everyone that these are our numbers, that this is what we impact in terms of the economy, the GDP, and what have you. And thank you so much, Dr. Witcher. I loved your presentation, and I hope I can have access to that. And to Steve as well, thank you and to Ria, thank you for counting. So that's it. My question was answered. So I just hope we all. I know it's a bit difficult to. I was going through the question. We'll try our best to send in as much as we can throughout all over the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will definitely share the materials from this event, hopefully after the activity. I think we can accommodate 2 to 3 more questions. Is that fine? Okay, so we have one from Mario from Austria. He's asking, do you have suggestions, best practices on how to bridge technological gaps? The design industry has become so technical, digital, that I'm afraid traditional arts and crafts are missing a crucial part to participate in the global economy. What can we do? Again, do you have any suggestions or best practices on how to bridge technological gaps? The design industry has become so technical or digital that I'm afraid traditional arts and crafts are missing a crucial part to participate in the global economy. What can we do?
I'm happy to give a start on that one.
Yeah.
I think I absolutely agree. I think what's quite intriguing is how disparate and broad the design sector itself is. We are dealing with, as you say, small arts and crafts organizations, which might be one or two people. We're also dealing with digitally advanced and high performing design initiatives. So there is such a broad breadth. And as Steve said, there is multiple facets to this. We want to look at designers in non-design sectors. We want to look at designers in design sectors. That there is like such a huge breadth here. And of course, this will entail methodological challenges. I'm really glad to hear that this is something that's going to be repeated, on a regular basis. So we're trying our best to make this as robust as possible. We're trying to engage with representation groups, who operate at those different levels. But this is something, like the best of design. This is something that's going to be iterative and something that we want to learn from. And we want to try our best to capture these different facets. And obviously, we're very open. If you've got ideas on how we could do this, that would be, we're open to hearing about them. I don't know if anybody else wants to follow up on that.
I think in the work that we've done also with the British Council, I mean, there is a lot of the dialogue that is being had in terms of like how do you bridge that divide, the digital divide between the artisans, as well as a more innovative technological side of that. But I think even I think there is even in the work that we do at Design Center when we call it digital artisans, there is a common ethos, even from the artisan point of view, where people are doing the handmade stuff, and then the people that are doing the digital work. And the more that we do open up these conversations, these dialogues, then maybe we can also open up new platforms by which the two disciplines can work together and complement that work, and then create, interesting new hybrid kind of collaboration. um, and then but there is definitely a the work that we are also trying to do in at Design Center, as well as even with our DTI offices. And I know someone mentioned about the skills program of Singapore, and the kind of new design skill sets. With our partnership with the Singapore government, as well as through the Philippine Trade Training Center, we are developing programs. The Philippine Trade Training Center is developing programs that could bridge that divide between the designers that were trained, I guess, in earlier years, to have that new upskilling, opportunities for upskilling in this new, I guess, in this new phase, in this new design phase.
Oh, thanks, Ria. And just further to Ria's point, I'll just mention that there are a number of international case studies, international best practices for how this gap has been explored and how it can be addressed in the future. So here in the UK, there's the Nesta and Arts Council of England have the Digital R&D Fund. Nesta has a similar program in Scotland as well, and I believe in Wales. And this is exploring how digital can help advance parts of the arts and cultural sector that aren't typically or traditionally immersed in digital. And there are other examples around the world, different skills programs, funding, and Anna had even introduced the great example at Scottish Enterprise, for example, deploying design in business. Well, there are similar programs that can be looked at in terms of deploying digital in design and various types of design, including traditional.
Right, thanks, Steve. I think we can have one last question from our audience. Elimar Apao raised his hand. So Elimar, please ask your
Hi.
question.
Hi, do you hear me? It's okay.
Yes, yes. Can
Hi,
you
everyone.
introduce yourself and maybe
Yes.
share the name of your organization?
I'm Eli. I'm the founder of User Experience Philippines, and we are a nonprofit organization of around 5,000 members. And we actually have a survey as well that's might tie into your survey that we'll be releasing soon. No, I actually you answered my question. Most of my questions were related to the research plan, the research framework that's going to be how it looks like. And I think Ken had explained it. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate what you had shared, all the effort that you've done. I just wanted to share that. And Anna, I like your case studies as well. Very, very nice. And we'd love, there are a lot of case studies, I think, in the Philippines as well that we would love to raise, particularly some of the startups have good case studies. Now, I think most of my questions are answered. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that was like a quick recap of what happened. But anyway, I'm afraid that we won't be able to answer all of the questions, but we hope to continue the conversation about this activity by sending an email to designeconomyph@designcenter.gov.ph. All right. So to conclude our Q&A, may I ask all of our speakers maybe 30 to 30 seconds to 1 minute to give your final words? So maybe you can start with Ms. Ria. Sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I was answering some of
The
the questions.
questions.
Yeah. But yeah, again, sorry. I'm like in answering the question the question mode. But you know, really it's, you know, the part of the this reach out talaga is just to make sure that everyone knows about our initiative, and we really welcome as diverse a group as possible, so that we do get to learn about you know, what design really is in the Philippines, and to demystify, I guess, the field of design, the sector of design, and even, you know, just the use of design in the country, so that we're able, you know, as design center, we are also able to tailor fit, you know, like our programs, our plans and programs, in support of that national design policy that we will be making. And again, I mean, like, since we are also a 50 year agency, we're really hoping that also through this mapping, we are also trying to transform the agency to be more relevant as well to today's needs. So this is, you know, I'm sure this is going to be the first of many conversations with all of you, and we will be opening up our research and the workshops, future workshops, for those interested to sit down with us, and patient enough to and generous enough to share your time, to inform this research that we are doing, and hopefully to influence the design policy that we will be crafting for the Philippines, the first national design policy for the Philippines.
All right. And then maybe we'll have Anna and then followed by Steve. So Kenny will be the last as a project lead.
I think the key thing from my side is just say I'm so excited about this project. It's really great that it's gathered momentum. Please do complete the survey, but also we are going to be hosting 2 design policy workshops in July, and it'd be really fantastic to continue this discussion, to have your input, and to explore, you know, the things that we've just about been able to touch on. So I really look forward to seeing you as part of that very interactive session in July. So thank you.
All right, Steve.
Great. I just would like to express that, you know, Design Counts is all about you. It's about the design community. It's for you. It's about you. And this survey is one of the important ways of ensuring that your voice is heard. It's one of the ways, one of the many ways that we're collecting information and cohering it and really trying to present and amplify your voice. And so the more people that respond, the more of your colleagues and your network that you can share the survey with, the stronger your collective voice will be, and the more evidence that we'll have to put together in support of your needs and your challenges and your opportunities.
Ken.
Yeah, I'm sleepless. The team is sleepless too, so please answer the survey. Yeah, but I think when it comes to, you know, a lot of questions that we've always received every time we facilitate this kind of conversations is that what's in it for the government? You know, why are you doing this kind of mapping? Why I cannot while I cannot speak for all government agencies, but the complex and, you know, the rigorous process of leading and this mapping, and also our overarching goal, which is the development of the very first national design policy, is actually a platform to be able to build longer tables for everyone, and most especially for us to be able to create a framework on how we can be able to really inspire a lot more government agencies to not just only design center, because we cannot do it all alone, to recognize, you know, the value of design, look at design and invest and support it, and develop strategies on, you know, how the different parts of the ecosystem, so that involves you, of course, on in terms of how we can better support you, address your needs, and how we can help you to, you know, further harness the power of design in addressing social problems. And just to add on what Steve has actually mentioned earlier, that it's all about you, this initiative is really all about you, for all the designers, business people, government agencies, and the public sector that uses design in all forms. We hope that your support could really help us in terms of attracting more partners to be able to further support and recognize design and designers as well as as a strategic tool for national development, which is the core of what Design Center is doing. So as I mentioned to Ms. Ria last time, I mean, 2 years ago, I don't really see myself as a designer, just a data analyst, but being part of the ecosystem right now, everyone has an important role to take or to play with in the design ecosystem, and that includes all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you, Dr. Anna, Ms. Ria, Steve, and Ken. Thanks also to our participants for questions and for the very active chat box. We'll be collecting your insights and ideas on how we can further, contribute to this mapping study. Okay. We hope that we can meet sometime outside the virtual space after the pandemic. Now, as we end this discussion, allow me to welcome our Head of Arts and Creative Industries at the British Council in the Philippines for the closing remarks, Malaya Del Rosario. Hi, Lai.
Hi, congratulations to everyone. And I've been tasked with the most difficult task, which is to hold everyone at the exit before we finally close. But I'll make this quick. Right, so I'm really, pleasantly surprised about today's attendance because I think we surpassed our targets, right, for today. So that's a very good sign that people are really engaged. So we're starting at a good level of engagement already with the design ecosystem. And during the discussion today, Anna mentioned that, of course, one of the wonderful qualities of design is its ability to help us solve complex problems. And I just wanted to relate that to our partnership with the Design Center and DTI for this project, Design Counts. So we basically started, the British Council started the collaboration with Design Center in 2017 with regard to the creative economy. And we had this daunting question, which is how might we contribute to the Philippines' aspirations in growing its creative economy? So this led us to designing many exciting and wonderful programs, such as, we were part of the ASEAN Creative Cities Forum and Exhibition, and the Creative Innovators Program. So after the successful delivery and designing of these projects, Design Center shared another problem of theirs, which is how might we be able to develop a grounded and inclusive design policy that will, of course, affect real change within and beyond the design sector in the Philippines. So since 2019, this was even pre-COVID times, we've been trying to answer this question. And this led us to 3 possible solutions that we think all work together to strengthen each other. And the first, of course, is to co-develop this approach, this research, a mapping approach to the design economy of the Philippines. And second, in order to do this, we help broker synergistic partnerships with experts, in the Philippines and the UK, and to help us deliver the best research approach possible. And of course, lastly, by doing these 2 things, we thus created this platform, Design Counts, to share best practices between provinces, sectors, organizations, and countries, of course. So for me, this is really what cultural relations is all about, and what I particularly love about our work at the British Council. So with that, thank you for joining us today, and thanks in advance for your time, for filling up the survey and sharing it with your networks. I think we are really counting on your leadership today, from the design sector to help us really reach, all corners of the design ecosystem in the Philippines and beyond. So we hope to see you in the next gathering of Design Counts as we continue the research and when we finally present the results of the study, which I'm sure will be mind-blowing. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lai, for closing this roundtable discussion and for that message. I hope everyone, gained or picked up some key learnings and insights from the activity. For those who would like to participate in the survey, we'll be flashing on our screens the QR code. for the survey, and we'll also be sending the link through the chat box. So please, take the survey, or perhaps you can share it with your network and colleagues in the design industry. Help us fill in the gaps as mentioned by Design Center of the Philippines in their promotional campaign. And then, before we formally end our roundtable discussion, may we request everyone to please join us for a photo op. Just very, very quick photo op. If you're not comfortable, or if you are comfortable to turn on your camera, that would be great. So the team of Ken will be taking photos, so maybe three photos. Yeah. Okay, so please turn on your cameras. All right, are we all ready? Okay, say cheese. 1, 2, 3.
Design counts.
One more. Yeah, so all right, design counts. Say design counts. 1, 2, 3.
Design
Design
counts.
And last one. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, together, let's push the Philippine design forward. Together, let's make design counts. This has been your host, Henry Palma. Thank you and have a good morning, afternoon, and evening.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Oh my God, these feelings just begun. I'm saying things I've never said, doing things I've